No, please, you can't do this. I didn't do it, please.
Move it, miss!
Let's go.
Before she was Genevieve Vance, the stunning socialite floating through Manhattan penthouse galas in $5,000 silk dresses, she was just Cassie Miller, a small-town girl from a forgotten dirt road in rural Ohio, broke, desperate and obsessed with a life she couldn't afford. Cassie's own mother had passed away when she was young, leaving her with nowhere to go. It was the real Genevieve, a brilliant, soft-spoken girl with an Ivy League finance degree, and her family who took Cassie into their home, feeding her, clothing her, and treating her like a second daughter. But instead of gratitude, resentment grew in Cassie's chest. Her golden ticket out came 2 years ago. When an accident left Genevieve hospitalized back home, Cassie didn't step in to help the family that saved her. She erased her friend. She stole Genevieve's identity, wiped her own past, and used the stolen credentials to secure a high-paying analyst position at Vanguard Capital. Cassie quickly realized her stolen degree didn't matter. What mattered was her body. She was breathtaking, sharp cheekbones, golden skin, and a physical presence that turned every room into her personal runway. She realized early on that men in power didn't care about financial models when a gorgeous woman was leaning over their desk. Within months, she stopped doing actual work altogether. She flirted her way past quarterly reviews, used her looks to get free VIP access to exclusive clubs, and began targeting married executives. Her formula was ruthless: find a wealthy, powerful board member, pull him into a corner, use her charm to extract insider tips, luxury apartments, and corporate favors, and then move on before the dust settled. She looked down on everyone, the waiters, the assistants, the wives crying in silence at home. To Cassie, the world was divided into predators and prey, and her body made her an apex predator. Then came Marcus Sterling. Marcus was a billionaire asset manager, senior partner at Vanguard, and the crown jewel of her conquests. Within 3 months, Cassie had him buying her a condo in Soho and feeding her confidential trade details. She got arrogant. She thought she was untouchable. She didn't count on Eleanor Sterling, Marcus's wife of 22 years. Eleanor wasn't just a trophy wife, she was old money, brilliant, and fiercely protective of her legacy. When Marcus started coming home late, smelling of expensive perfume, Eleanor didn't cry. She hired elite private investigators to dig into Genevieve Vance, and what they found was a goldmine of absolute ruin. A few weeks later was the annual Winter Solstice Gala at the Plaza Hotel, the most prestigious night on New York's high society calendar. Diamonds blazed under the crystal chandeliers, live orchestras played softly, and the city's top politicians, CEOs, and socialites filled the grand ballroom. Cassie arrived on the arm of Marcus Sterling, wearing a daring backless crimson gown that had every head in the room turning. She glided through the crowd, sipping champagne, smirking at the wives whose husbands couldn't keep their eyes off her. She felt like a queen at her coronation. At 9 p.m., the room fell silent as Eleanor Sterling took the stage under the guise of presenting the evening's charity keynote. Elegant and composed, Eleanor stood at the podium in a understated black velvet dress. "Good evening, everyone," Eleanor's voice echoed smoothly across the ballroom speakers. "Tonight is about transparency, accountability, and truth." A massive high-definition screen behind Eleanor flickered to life. Cassie smiled, expecting a slideshow of charity work. Instead, the screen lit up with a high-resolution surveillance photo of Cassie and Marcus in a private hotel elevator, locked in an embrace. A collective gasp rippled through the hundreds of elite guests. Marcus froze, his face draining of all color. Cassie's breath hitched in her throat. "Many of you know the woman standing next to my husband as Genevieve Vance," Eleanor said, her voice dropping into a razor-sharp, steady tone. "A rising star at Vanguard, but let's talk about who she really is." With a click of a remote, the screen shifted. A mugshot from 5 years ago appeared, a gaunt, hollow-eyed Cassie Miller, arrested in rural Ohio for drug possession and petty theft. Next to it was a copy of the real Genevieve's stolen birth certificate and forged employment records. "Her name is Cassie Miller," Eleanor announced, her words cutting through the dead silence like glass. "She didn't go to Columbia, she didn't earn a finance degree. She stole the identity of her bedridden friend, left that friend broke and destitute in a state facility, and came to this city using her body as a weapon to con married men, defraud this firm, and feed a lifestyle built on pure deception. Audio recordings began playing over the ballroom speakers, Cassie's own voice, raw and cold, whispering to Marcus about getting him to divorce Eleanor for a bigger settlement, mixed with phone clips of her laughing about how easy it was to manipulate every man in the company. The ballroom erupted into chaos, whispers turned into loud condemnation, society women glared with pure hatred, executives backed away from her as if she were poisonous. Marcus immediately threw his hands up, shouting to Eleanor, "She seduced me, she lied about everything, I had no idea," instantly discarding Cassie like trash to save his own skin. Cassie stood exposed in the center of the room, her body, her beauty, her clothes, the very things she had used to dominate everyone, now made her feel completely naked, humiliated, and destroyed. Security stepped forward. Without a word, two heavy-set guards grabbed Cassie by her arms, escorting her forcefully out of the ballroom. As she was dragged down the grand carpeted stairs, high society guests pulled out their phones, filming her, laughing, and shouting insults. They threw her out the side doors into the freezing, pouring rain of Fifth Avenue. Her crimson dress was soaked, stained with street grime. Her high heels snapped on the pavement. Within hours, her phone blew up with notifications before it died. Terminated from her job, her bank accounts frozen by federal investigators, her Soho condo locks changed, and millions of hateful comments flooding her profiles. As she wandered the dark side streets in a haze of shock, two street thugs cornered her in a dimly lit alley. They dragged her into the shadows, slapping her across the face and beating her down into the cold asphalt to take her designer purse, jewelry, and last scraps of cash. Before vanishing into the night, one of the thugs sneered, "Mrs. Sterling says hello." Cassie lay bleeding in the alley, her face bruised and her ribs throbbing. She knew Eleanor had organized the hit, but with no money, a stolen identity, and the law on her heels, what could she do? She just had to take it and stay quiet to keep out of prison. By the third night, shivering uncontrollably in the dark alley, clutching her ruined, dirt-caked dress around her body, Cassie felt her sanity slipping. Her body was shaking violently, covered in dark blue bruises, bloodied cuts, and street dirt. She huddled against a stack of damp cardboard boxes, sobbing uncontrollably, realizing her beauty was completely gone. Headlights cut through the darkness of the alley. A low-cost sedan pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and a woman stepped out into the rain holding a warm coat. She walked with a slight, persistent limp, her face pale but soft. It was the real Genevieve. Cassie looked up through swollen, tear-filled eyes, gasping for air. "Genevieve? Why are you here?" Genevieve stood over her, looking down at the broken, bruised shell of the girl who had ruined her life. "I saw the videos online," Genevieve said softly, kneeling down in the wet alley and wrapping the thick woolen coat around Cassie's trembling shoulders. "I saw what happened to you. I took your life," Cassie wept, pressing her dirt-stained face into her hands, her body shaking with deep, agonizing sobs. "I stole your name. I left you in that hospital. I used everybody. I thought my body made me better than you." Genevieve gently pulled Cassie's hands away from her face, looking straight into her eyes. "You built a house made of glass, Cassie," Genevieve said gently, "and it fell on top of you. You tried to be someone else because you were too terrified to fix who you really were. My mother passed away from her illness while you were living your lie, but I promised her before she died that I would find you and take care of you, no matter what you did." Cassie choked on a sob, crushed by the weight of Genevieve's forgiveness. "I have nothing left," she whispered. "They took everything. They took the lie," Genevieve replied, helping Cassie stand up on her bruised bare feet. "The lie is dead, but you're still breathing." Genevieve opened the passenger door, helping Cassie slide into the warm interior of the car. As Genevieve walked around to the driver's seat, Cassie looked at her reflection in the side mirror, a swollen, bruised face, dark circles under her eyes, her hair matted with blood and rain. For the first time in her life, she wasn't looking at a mask, she was looking at Cassie Miller. Genevieve got into the car, put it in drive, and pulled out into the city traffic, heading far away from the sparkling lights of the plaza. "Where are we going?" Cassie asked quietly, her voice barely a whisper. Home, Genevieve said, reaching over to turn on the heater. We're going back to the beginning. It's going to take years, Cassie. You're going to face the police. You're going to pay back every cent, and you're going to do the real work to heal what you broke. But this time, you're doing it as yourself. Cassie closed her eyes, letting the heat wash over her bruised and battered body. The glamorous world she had conquered and lost was gone forever, but as the city lights faded behind them, she knew the real work had finally begun. When the car finally crossed back into Ohio, Cassie didn't run from the wreckage she left behind. The fake life was dead, and the real accountability began. With Genevieve by her side, Cassie walked into the police station and confessed to every crime, from identity theft to financial fraud. The legal system was unyielding. She was sentenced to 3 years in a state correctional facility, ordered to surrender every asset she owned, and required to pay full restitution to Vanguard Capital. Those 3 years behind bars stripped away every last drop of vanity. There were no designer dresses, no high society galas, and no men to manipulate. There was only hard labor, quiet reflection, and the long, painful process of confronting who she really was. Through every visiting hour, Genevieve came. When Cassie was finally released at 25, she and Genevieve started from absolute rock bottom. Working out of a tiny, cramped basement in their hometown, they pooled their strengths to launch a small financial consulting firm, this time built on complete transparency, hard work, and unshakable ethics. Now, 15 years after that fateful night at the Plaza, Cassie is 37 years old. The small basement setup has transformed into a thriving, highly successful regional consulting firm. They are equal business partners, respected across the state, generating real wealth built on an honest foundation. The sparkling fake world of Manhattan high society was replaced by something far more valuable: peace, dignity, and true accomplishment. Over the years, neither Genevieve nor anyone in their inner circle ever brought up the past. The lie was buried forever, replaced by an unbreakable sisterhood. Genevieve married a kind local architect and has a wonderful son. Cassie married a grounded, supportive man who loved her for her character, not a costume. Together, they have 2 beautiful children. On a bright Sunday afternoon, Cassie stands in the backyard of her comfortable Ohio home, watching her 8-year-old daughter play on the grass. The young girl has inherited her mother's breathtaking beauty, the same golden skin, bright eyes, and radiant smile. Cassie kneels down beside her daughter, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, looking into her innocent eyes. Cassie knows the world will eventually try to tell her daughter that her looks are her only value. But Cassie is raising her differently, teaching her that true strength comes from honesty, humility, and the work of your own hands. As Genevieve walks over, handing Cassie a glass of lemonade with a warm, unspoken smile, Cassie looks out at her family and her home. The scars from that rainy alley in Manhattan are still there, but they no longer bring pain. They are simply reminders of the girl who thought her body could do it all, and the woman who proved she was worth so much more.